I mean, I understand wanting to have equitable distribution in terms of payment, but I think the spirit of the deal is somewhat thwarted when you're now advocating for the land. Whoever has the listing pays the fee. I understand it, but I think there's a back-end negative impact.
Well, I think a fair act is almost like a tariff. It is this one-time bounce that could come across as extreme inflation. I personally would prefer it if the landlord did pay all the commission, because I'm always embarrassed to ask tenant for commission payments. But at the end of the day, it's an accounting. Regardless of what happens, it is going to be paid for either way, because people in this world do not work for free. It's that simple, really.
But you have the discount component, which then thwarts the availability to get a higher price, right? So if the landlord's only willing to pay a certain fee, it's almost like the Sherman Antitrust Act. He's now setting the bar, and that's actually a conflict of interest, right?
It could be, but I think inflation is a bad thing always. Hyperinflation shocks people. And I think you're going to see an elevation in rental prices to accommodate this, which will be messy unless we all get paid in tips, and that way we don't have to pay taxes.
So that is our tip, right? And keep in mind, when there is a tariff, people go local because it's too expensive to import and export, which goes back to the fact that rentals actually have the ability to garner value for both sides, driving the price up rather than capping it.
Well, I think good luck to anyone who does a rental on their own.
No,
it is a nightmare.
It's
you need hand holding.
It's the hardest thing ever.
It's a nightmare.
It is.
I would say the biggest thing to me about tariffs is quality. Will you be able to get the exact same quality immediately from something made in America that hasn't been made in America for a long, long time?
That's a great point, and I do think the idea of going local when it's too costly to do export and import means you do have to push. And there's some amazing American resources, like for example, Danby Marble. We have one of the biggest quarries just right out in Hudson, right outside of New York, versus going to Italy. But as it relates to cars, I get it. But then most of BMW, aren't they sourcing a lot of that stuff in North Carolina now?
Well, I don't think anything is exclusively made in one place anywhere ever, because the machine that makes it often is imported, or parts of the machine, or it's just a very complex global market. And I think everyone is trying to oversimplify things. My biggest fear is that if you have to make everything locally with all local components, will you sacrifice quality? And there I believe the wealthy will be willing to pay an extra price for quality.
Premium to get up. I do agree with that.
It's the owner's effect.
It is. They flew them over on a big jumbo flight. Yep. I think the idea of going on the offensive and forcing people to come to you is a very, very aggressive act. However, there are plenty of people who do not want their $50 million property open to the market, but it does go against the constitution of the Universal Cooperating Co-Brokerage Agreement, which gives it an open forum. And I don't mean to overstep, but we think we know who the buyer is, and sometimes actually opening up that forum surprises people.
I think the biggest issue is you have to provide every consumer with choice. If you take that choice away or dictate to the consumer, you are not serving their best interests. There is no other industry where you are compelled to sell your product to the entire world instantly. If you look at the financial market, which is also a big investment like real estate, oftentimes those placements are done privately for very specific reasons. So I think there is a huge disservice being done to the consumer that is, I think, legally unfair to not provide them a choice.
I hear what you're saying, but I think that it's a very fine line as well, right? As you said, there's a choice. I think that for the mainstream, we've seen much success in garnering a much more powerful result by opening it up, because we think we know, but we don't know every time where it's coming from. That being said, I do agree that for some level, they want choice and privacy.
It's just closing the door bit so that you don't have a flood of people coming in for what you're trying to sell quietly.
I get it, but yeah, I get it.
But I think at the end of the day, you're absolutely right. Placing these arguments in front of a seller is the key so that they have the choice.
Duly noted.